The announcement that changed everything. The sky above Mars Colony 12 looked calm, but inside every home people were frozen in fear. The Galactic Council had just broadcast a new emergency law. It spread across all human colonies in seconds. Alien brides are now banned, said the message. Human citizens are no longer allowed to marry aliens, and all existing alien-human marriages will be void from this day. Luke stared at the screen in silence, his hands clenched around a cup of cold water. Beside him sat Mira, his alien wife with silver eyes and soft glowing skin. She was holding her belly gently. She was pregnant with their first child. Luke stood up slowly, trying to hide the storm inside him. He walked toward the window. The colony lights flickered. In the distance, drones flew silently overhead, scanning houses one by one. Mira looked up at him, her voice trembling. What will happen now? Luke turned around, his voice firm. We leave, we hide, we survive. No one is taking you away from me. Outside, the patrol bots were already rolling through the streets. A voice echoed across the neighborhood. Prepare your documents. Prepare your alien residence for inspection. Mira looked pale. She tried to stand, but her knees shook. Luke caught her. Mira, listen to me. You go to the tunnels, the old mining ones under the ridge. I will bring supplies every night. Mira shook her head. I cannot leave you. Luke cupped her face and kissed her forehead. You have to, for the baby. They will not stop just because you are pregnant. She looked down at her belly, her hands trembling. Luke helped her pack a small bag with food and water. A loud knock shook the door. Luke moved fast. Mira disappeared into the back room. The hidden hatch behind the tool shelves led straight into the lower tunnel. Luke answered the door. Two officers stood tall, wearing dark visors. We have received reports of an alien presence in this unit. Luke kept his voice steady. I work alone. I live alone. No aliens here. They stepped inside, scanning the room. Mira was already gone. One officer paused near the food counter, his scanner blinking. Luke spoke again. No one else lives here. I just eat a lot and forget to clean. The officers looked at each other, then turned to leave. If we find out you are lying, you will be prosecuted under the new law. When they left, Luke locked the door. He ran to the hatch. Mira was already gone in the tunnels. Mira moved carefully, breathing through the dust and darkness. Her heart beat fast. Her hands rested on her belly, as if trying to calm the life inside her. She reached the safe zone, a small hollow chamber with old crates and wires. Luke had fixed a light there, a mattress and a blanket. That night, Luke arrived through another entrance. He brought more food. Mira was sitting on the ground, her face tired, but her eyes still full of hope. They ate quietly. Luke whispered, I contacted Eva. She might help. Mira asked. The smuggler nodded. She knows the routes out of the colony. If anyone can get you off Mars, it is her. Mira looked away. Then she said, even if I leave, what about you? What about our child? Luke held her hand tightly. I will come too, but we need to do this in steps. Stayed with her that night, holding her close, listening to the quiet hum of the tunnels above them. But above ground, whispers had already begun. Someone had seen Luke buying extra supplies. Someone had noticed the power drain in his unit. The next morning, a silent drone hovered near Luke's home, scanning windows and vents inside the facility where the law had been created. Government officials watched reports from colonies across Mars. Thousands of aliens were being captured, sent to detention centers. Mira's name was now flagged among the missing. Back in the tunnels, Mira felt a sharp pain. She gasped and held her belly. The baby kicked stronger than before. Luke rushed to her side, his eyes full of fear. We need a doctor. No, Mira whispered. Not now, not yet. If I show up in any clinic, they will take me. Luke knew she was right. He tried to ease her pain with an old medkit, his hands shaking. Later that night, he returned home only to find his door broken. The room was ransacked, papers tossed around, scanners humming. He backed away slowly and disappeared into the shadows. They knew. He returned to the tunnel and told Mira, we have to move again. She could barely stand, but she nodded. Luke carried her on his back through the long tunnel into a deeper chamber that was once a mind control center. That is where they heard the noise. Boots' voices shouting. Someone had followed them. Luke looked at Mira one last time. Go through the other tunnel. I will block this path. She wanted to protest, but he pushed her gently. I will come back. "I promise." Myra disappeared into the shadows as Luke grabbed a metal pipe and turned to face the noise. As the footsteps grew louder, Luke felt only one thing: he would protect his family, even if the entire system turned against him. Hunted by law, protected by love, Myra moved through the narrow tunnel, her breaths shallow, her heart pounding with every step behind her. The echoes of shouting and boots faded, but fear still clung to her like dust on skin. She reached the edge of the mining zone where the old storage unit stood forgotten. Inside one of the crates was a small compartment Luke had shown her last year, just in case something ever went wrong. She crawled inside, pulling the metal lid back over her head. Darkness surrounded her. The air was thin, but it was safe for now. Luke stood face to face with two soldiers. They were armed and alert, but not expecting resistance. He did not give them time to ask questions. He swung the pipe hard, striking the first one on the helmet. The man fell, but the second raised his weapon. Luke ducked, rolled, and vanished into the side corridor. A place only miners knew, a place Myra had never been. He moved fast through the narrow paths, each turn etched in his memory. From years of repair work behind him, alarms began to ring. "Myra is safe," he repeated in his mind over and over. He climbed out of an old shaft and ran into the silent desert above. The wind on Mars howled low. Red dust swept across his face. Back in the crate, Myra pressed her hand to her belly. The baby kicked again, stronger than before. Her body felt warm, too warm. She wiped her forehead and whispered, "Stay calm, little one." 3 hours passed, then a small knock on the crate. Myra waited. A second knock, 2 taps, then 3. It was Luke's signal. She opened the lid slowly. Luke looked tired, dirty, but alive. He smiled weakly. "We need to move now." They walked at night across the dunes, hiding behind rocks and ridges. Luke held her hand steady, guiding her through the shifting sand. "We will meet Ava in Sector 7, he said. She agreed to help, but only if we reach before sunrise. Myra nodded, though her legs hurt and her stomach tightened with every mile. They reached a small abandoned shuttle. Ava's voice came through a broken radio unit. "You better be alone. We are." Luke replied, "No trackers, no tails." The door opened and Ava stood inside, wearing a patched coat and goggles. Her eyes scanned Myra, then Luke. "You brought a pregnant alien," she whispered loudly. "Are you trying to get us all killed?" "She is not just any alien," Luke snapped. "She is my wife, and that child is part of me." Ava stared for a second, then sighed and waved them in. Inside, the shuttle wires hung from the ceiling, and the air smelled like old fuel, but it was hidden, and that was all that mattered. Ava gave Myra water and a pill to lower her temperature. "You have one shot," she said. "There is an old ship docked beneath the ridge, a scout ship from the old war era. No ID, no registration, but it still flies." Luke leaned forward. "How soon can we reach it?" "Before dawn, if you move fast," Ava replied. "But if they find out you escaped arrest, they will deploy hunters, not just patrols, and they do not miss." Luke helped Myra lie down. She closed her eyes for a moment, her hand still resting on her belly. Ava watched them quietly for a while, then turned to Luke. "You are risking everything for this child," Luke replied with a calm voice. "Not just for the child, for the right to choose who I love and who my family is." Ava looked away and walked out to prepare the route, but while they planned, a man back in the colony sat in a room full of screens. His name was Carter, and he was the one who reported Luke earlier. Now he watched the satellite feed showing heat trails near the abandoned sector. Picked up a radio unit. 2 targets moving northeast. Dispatch hunter unit by midnight. Eva, Luke, and Myra reached the docking point. The old ship was covered in dust and vines, but the engine still hummed when powered. Luke helped Myra climb in. Her breathing was slow, her skin glowing faintly. The baby was close. Suddenly a red light blinked on Ava's scanner. They found as she whispered fast, "Get her inside." From the sky a black drone hovered, then fired a flash beam that lit up the ridge. Luke jumped into the pilot seat. Ava took the gun turret. Myra lay in the back seat, whispering to the baby, "Just a little longer." The ship lifted, barely clearing the rocks below. The drone chased them, firing blasts one after another. Ava fired back, striking its wing. The drone spun and crashed, but from behind 3 more lights appeared. Luke pushed The ship hard through the storm zone, winds hit them sideways. Alarms rang. Mira cried out. Luke shouted, hold on. The ship tilted, then balanced, rising above the canyon. The enemy drones turned back the storm. Too strong for their system. Silence returned. Luke looked back. Mira was pale but smiling. We made it, she whispered. Eva helped set a course to a rogue planet far beyond the law zone, where humans and aliens lived outside the council's rule. But Luke knew this was only a pause. The law was still chasing them, and Mira's time was running out. A child they fear. The rogue planet floated in darkness, far from Earth, far from the laws that now hunted them. Luke guided the old ship into the atmosphere, while Eva checked the systems. Mira lay in the back, her breathing slow, her eyes closed, her hands resting on her stomach. The landing was rough, dust rising around the ship as it touched the cracked ground. Old buildings stood nearby, made from scrap metal and forgotten dreams. This was the free zone where no one asked questions. Eva helped Mira down from the ship. Mira tried to stand, but her legs shook. Luke caught her in time, her face pale, her lips dry. She is burning up, he said. Eva nodded. We need to find someone who understands alien birth cycles. They moved fast through the empty camp until they found a man named Tomas. He was once a medical officer during the border wars. He lived in a small shack filled with machines and memory. He looked at Mira, then pointed to a table inside. You are lucky, most humans would have left her by now. Luke replied, she is my wife. She is carrying my child. I will never leave her. Tomas began scanning her body. The results made him pause. This is not normal, he said. The child is growing fast, too fast, even for her kind. Mira opened her eyes, her voice weak. I feel it moving. It is like it knows something is wrong. Tomas looked at Luke. The child is reacting to the stress, to the fear. It is not just surviving, it is adapting. Luke stared at the screen. It showed the baby glowing in Mira's womb. The heart beat strong, the energy around it pulsing like waves. Tomas warned them, if the council finds out about this, they will not stop until they have the child. Outside in the free zone, word was spreading, a hybrid child with unknown power, a child that might not fit into human or alien rules. Whispers turned into fearsome. Believed the child could be dangerous. Others believed it could be the answer to peace. But on Earth, high officials watched secret footage taken from the rogue planet. A spy probe had followed the ship and recorded the energy signature of the unborn child in a tall building covered in glass. A man in uniform stood before the council and said, this child must not be born on any human planet. It is a threat to order, to law, to human blood. A new command was signed. The child must be captured alive or not at all. Black on the rogue planet. Mira woke in the night, sweat on her skin, pain in her body. She cried out. Luke rushed to her side. She said, the baby is coming early. Tomas ran in with a small kit. His hands moved fast. He told Luke, we cannot move her. Now she has to give birth here. But this will not be easy. Walls shook with Mira's cries. Luke held her hand, whispering, stay with me. You are not alone. You are strong. Outside, Eva stood guard, her eyes scanning the sky, and then a sound came. A ship, not theirs, not from the zone, a black scout ship with no markings. Eva grabbed her weapon and radioed Luke, they found us. You need to hurry inside. The child was born, but something was different. The room filled with light, not blinding but soft like the warmth of a star. The baby let out a cry that echoed through the building. It was not just sound, it was something more. The machines in the room flickered, then died. The lights pulsed, then faded. The baby opened its eyes, glowing gold. Tomas stepped back, his voice shaking. This is not just a hybrid. This is something new. Luke held the baby in his arms, feeling a strange calm, even as the danger grew outside. The scout ship landed. Soldiers stepped out, weapons drawn. They moved toward the building, their voices cold. Surrender the child. Eva fired a warning shot. They returned fire. She ducked behind cover and called for backup, knowing none would come. Luke stood in the center of the room, the baby in his arms. Mira resting on the floor, barely conscious. He looked at Tomas, who nodded and opened the back door. Go now. Luke ran into the night, the baby wrapped in his coat, his steps fast through the broken paths and wind. Behind him, the soldiers entered the building but found no one inside. One of them touched the table where the baby had been and was knocked back by a sudden Surge of energy. The leader of the unit looked around, then shouted, "Find them." But Luke was already far gone. He ran past the ruins into the hills where old mines still waited hidden from the stars. He did not know where to go. He only knew this. They were no longer just running to survive. They were running to protect a life that could change the galaxy. The price of freedom. Luke ran through the rocky hills with the baby wrapped tightly in his coat. Mira's pale face haunted his mind, his heart pounding with every step. Ava followed close behind, firing warning shots to keep the soldiers away. The wind howled across the barren land, carrying dust and danger as they searched for shelter. Luke's breath came fast, but he pushed himself forward. The baby's small hands moved gently under his coat, as if sensing the fear. They found an old mining shelter half buried in the rocks and dust, a place once used for emergency supplies, now forgotten. Luke pushed the heavy door open and helped Mira inside her. Breathing was weak but steady. The baby kicked softly, as if trying to tell them to stay strong. Eva checked the medkit and handed Luke what he needed, a syringe with medicine to slow down Mira's labor. "We can keep her stable for a while," she said, "but not long. The child will come soon." Luke sat beside Mira, holding her hand, the weight of what they faced pressing down on him harder than the cold night air. "You have to hold on," he whispered. "The child needs you." "We all do." Mira smiled weakly and looked at Luke. In her eyes a silent promise that no matter what happened, she would protect their child, even from beyond outside. The night grew colder. Shadows moved in the distance. Soldiers were searching the hills with scanners and dogs, their voices carried on the wind like ghosts. Hunting. Luke felt trapped like a cornered animal, but he refused to give up. The child was more than just a baby. It was hope. It was the future. Hours passed. Mira's cries grew louder, the pain sharper. Luke helped her breathe through each wave while Ava stood watch. The baby was almost here. Suddenly, the shelter shook, a low rumble coming from beneath the ground. Luke looked around, confused. Then a faint glow began to rise from cracks in the floor. The baby cried out. A light filled the room, warm and gentle, like the first sun of morning. Luke felt a strange energy filling his body, calming his fear and pain. Mira's eyes opened wide as the light wrapped around her like a shield. Child was born in a burst of golden light, small and fragile, but glowing with a strange power. Luke held the baby close, feeling warmth spread through his chest, a feeling of peace even as danger pressed close. But the peace was short-lived. Outside, the sounds of engines roared. The soldiers had found them. The ground trembled as armored vehicles rolled towards the shelter. Eva fired again, signaling Luke. "We have to move now." Luke wrapped the baby tighter and helped Mira to her feet. She was weak but determined. Ran through the narrow passages of the mine, old machinery and broken beams making the escape difficult, but the baby's light seemed to guide them through the darkness. At the exit, they were met with soldiers blocking their path, guns raised. Luke stepped forward, holding the baby high, as if showing the world what they protected. "This child is not a threat," he said, his voice steady. "This child is life, hope, and love." The soldiers hesitated. Some lowered their weapons, confused by the glowing infant. But their leader raised his gun, shouting, "Seize them!" Ava jumped from behind a pillar, firing shots that forced the soldiers to scatter. Luke grabbed Mira and ran into the open desert, the baby's glow lighting their path. Chase was fierce, engines roaring and weapons firing behind them, the cold wind biting their skin. But Luke pushed forward, ignoring the pain in his legs. Suddenly, the baby's cry changed. It was louder, stronger, and the ground beneath them shook from the depths of the mine. A strange light burst forth. The ancient alien technology that had lain hidden for centuries awoke, responding to the child's call. The soldiers stopped, confused, their scanners going wild, signals and energy waves disrupting their systems. Luke looked back and saw the sky light up with symbols and colors no human had seen in generations. Leader shouted retreat, but his voice was drowned by the sound of ancient power rising. The ground cracked, and from the ruins rose towering structures of light and metal, surrounding the child and his family like a protective fortress. Soldiers fled, terrified, as the energy barrier blocked their Path Luke held Mira and the baby close, tears running down his face, relief and hope mixing in his heart. They were safe for now. The law could not reach them here, but Luke knew this was only the beginning. The child was a symbol, a challenge to the old order, and the galaxy would never be the same again. To be continued, you said. Part 51,000 words. Kaleko, or interesting. Una Chea, or third-person style. Malakaniha, or simple basic English. Ka use karna high dot or underline. ChatGPT said. Part 5. The law was meant to silence them, but he made them listen. 1,000 words. Third-person simple English, no underline. The sky above the desert glowed with strange colors, symbols floating like ancient messages from a forgotten time. Luke held his child tightly. Mira rested beside him, both exhausted but alive. Word of the glowing child spread fast across colonies and planets, even reaching Earth, where protests began outside government buildings, chanting freedom and unity. The Galactic Council held emergency meetings, their faces grim. Some feared the child's power, others feared losing control. Senator Hale stood before the crowd on live broadcast, his voice shaking. He announced the law banning alien brides and hybrids was now repealed. The people's will was clear, and the future must be different. Luke watched the broadcast with Mira, their child sleeping peacefully in a small cradle made from scraps. He thought of all they had lost, all they had risked, but also all they had gained. The chance for a new beginning. Eva returned with news that more colonies were opening their borders and offering protection to those once hunted. Luke smiled. This was more than a victory. This was change, but there were still dangers. The old guard still lurked in shadows, plotting to take the child for their own. One night while the family slept, Luke heard noises outside, a group of armed men creeping through the shadows. He grabbed a small weapon Ava had given him and stood ready to protect his family. The men entered the shelter quietly, but Luke was prepared, his aim steady. He shouted, "Leave now or face the consequences." The men hesitated, then retreated, knowing this was not a fight they could win. The child's light grew stronger every day, sometimes flickering like a flame, other times shining steady like a beacon. Scientists from different worlds came to study the child, hoping to understand its power and its message. Luke spoke to them simply, "This child is a symbol of what we can be together. Not divided by laws or fear, but united by love and hope." Myra nodded, her eyes shining tears of joy. Their journey had been long and hard, but finally they were free. The galaxy began to change with the child's birth. New laws were created protecting all beings, no matter where they came from or what they looked like. Communities formed where humans and aliens lived side by side, sharing cultures, stories, and dreams. Luke held his child one evening, looking at the stars, and whispered, "You are the future, the promise of a better world." Mira smiled softly and said, "Your love made this possible." The child cooed, reaching for their hands, and Luke felt a warmth that filled every part of him. The battles were not over, but now they had hope. Now they had each other and a future worth fighting for. And so the story ended, not with defeat, but with a new dawn. A new law written not in cold metal, but in the hearts of all beings. The end.